GM. GM. Today's lesson is going to be just my latest thoughts after a pretty hectic day between fake Trump coins and fucking all this other bullshit going on. I am pretty sure from my reading of sentiment that we are bottoming here. And I said it earlier in trading analysis. I said that the bottom was in. And obviously price went slightly lower. It pushed below but came back above. I want to make something really clear, because the way bottoms form, it's not about can there be a wick that goes even lower. It's more about, I think, this area, the sentiment, everything surrounding it is going to form a bottom. That can be within a range if you're talking Bitcoin. And I'm only talking Bitcoin, by the way, because even if Bitcoin goes sideways, altcoins can still bleed, right? Alts can still go lower. There can still be some selling. But I am getting ever more convinced that we are at, or basically at, the bottom, which doesn't mean that everything's going to moon straight away. Although crypto does have a tendency to get better at pricing things in. So I would expect that once the bottom forms, once the bottom is actually in, I think we pump and rally pretty hard, pretty quickly, and leave people behind. Now that's in a matter of days rather than, I'm not talking minutes or hours. A lot of people currently, and this lesson is just to give my current thoughts. This is very subjective stuff. I'm not using all the data, all that's in weekly outlook, that's in daily levels, that's in trade of the day, that's in trading analysis. I cover all the reasons, the volume profile, the ETFs, the flows, the open interest, the funding, all that. I'm talking about my experience subjectively from being in the markets for so long, and my reading of sentiment, which I feel is very good generally, and my reading of the emotion psychology side of it. I've no doubt this is capitulation. I don't know whether it's price-based or time-based. That's important. That's an important distinction. A lot of people I see now are talking about this is going to be time-based capitulation, which means go and look at altcoins. Right? Go pick any altcoin and go and look at July, August, September of 2023. That's time-based capitulation, where it just seems to keep bleeding lower and keep bleeding lower and keep bleeding lower. Even though price doesn't go down much, it just seems to keep grinding lower and lower and lower. And it's not big sell-offs, it's not liquidations. That's what the time-based capitulation element is. And price-based is different. Price-based is like Bitcoin, August 2023. I'll get you the exact date. Bitcoin in August 17th, 2023, where it just collapsed from 29k all the way down to 25 in one candle. That was price-based. So the thing is, I'm very confident that there's a bottom close. I don't know if it's going to be time-based or price-based. I actually think it's going to be price-based, which might mean we actually have a wick lower. It might mean we actually have a last big flush. And I'm mostly basing that on the fact that people now are very angry, they're very salty, sentiment is pessimistic, people are talking about liquidation, they're selling everything, it's fucking terrible, everything's bleeding, my portfolio is down 70% and blah, blah. Twitter is just awash with negative sentiment. And then the other theme I see, the other common rhetoric I'm seeing is, oh, pack it up, boys. We're done for summer. Come back again in October, September, right? It's like 2 or 3 more months, it's going to be dead, and then everything will rally going into the end of the year. So they're the people who think that the bull market's not over, but we're done for summer. I don't really agree with that, because I think most people are just basing that off of last year, because it's exactly what we did last year. And I don't think this year is going to play out like last year, because 2 summers almost never play out the same in a row, right? Because the thing with crypto and the 4-year cycle is you never have 2 years that are the same, right? You have the halving year, which we're in, which tends to be green, tends to finish higher than it starts. But in between, after the halving, which is usually summer, you tend to have some dead months. But then you have the year following, the post-halving year. That's always been the bull market peak. So that's been the year of the 2017 and 2021 big pumps, big peaks. And in 2017, it was up only all the way through summer. And in 2021, we actually crashed during summer. If you remember, China banned crypto in May, crashed down, and we double pumped into November. You then have the following year, which is the first year of the bear market typically, in which case it's just summer is fucking terrible, down and rough and down. Then you have the year following that, so the post bear market year, which is your correction, consolidation, recovery year, like last year, 2023. And that year is where we had our sideways range from April until October between 25 and 31. So the people saying that, death, slow, summer bleed, it's going to be summer bleed, they're literally basing it off 1 year, just last year. There was no slow summer and what they say, by the way, is like it's a slow summer reaccumulation and then we go higher, right? It's a bleed, then we go higher. But that's just based off 2023. That's all it's based off, last year. So I don't ascribe to that for that reason. Doesn't mean it can't happen, but I actually lean more towards relatively soon, the next few weeks, I think we get a final bottom. It could even be in the next few days. It could even be sooner if it's a price-based, meaning we have a large quick flush. If not, we probably chop and chop for another little while. But I do think that we go higher pretty soon. I'm pretty confident that a lot of the negativity, a lot of the pessimism, a lot of the negative price action is priced into the market. A lot of the negative outcomes are priced in. And like I talked about on Weekly Outlook, I don't think the positives, the optimism is being priced in correctly. So that's a favorable setup. And for me, that means rallies coming soon. It doesn't mean altcoins are going to, go to new all-time highs or even to new 2024 highs. Bitcoin and Ethereum clearly have the best structurally setups. Ethereum has the ETF coming, and Bitcoin has all the narrative, plus its ETF is live, and market structure. Bitcoin's very strong. Many alts, when you look across them, they are in sell-offs, in deep sell-offs, breaking structure, all of that. So I think if and when the bottom comes, the alts will rally, but they will still lag for several weeks, maybe even months. And this, by the way, is very, very normal. The next big altcoin, alt season, if you want to call it that, if we're actually going to get an alt season, it's going to come when Bitcoin's at 80, 90, 100K. Like Bitcoin's going to have to clearly make new all-time highs and break to massive new numbers for the alts to broad rally as a whole. And that will take weeks. And when Bitcoin's doing the breakout, people will ignore alts. So I think that the sentiment's pretty easy for me to read here in terms of Bitcoin is actually in a really good place. It's just consolidating, right, between 65 and 70. Altcoins are down bad, and the sentiment is really bad. So that tells me that once again, people don't own Bitcoin. They're over allocated into alts, and they got too excited too soon in an early stage cycle when Bitcoin had its big run, and they piled into meme coins that are down 70%, 90% some of them, and they piled into altcoins that are down bad and didn't even have good rallies to begin with. And they got in too late because they weren't here last June, last July, last August. They got in probably in February, March of this year. And that's all it really is, because I don't see how anybody who bought Bitcoin in the last 6 months can be overly disappointed, right? It's up significantly. And even if you bought in the last 3 months, unless you bought 73 exactly, you're either break even or down a little bit, but you're in a consolidation. Like Bitcoin is not showing pain and blood. So for the same reason, I think people will eventually, this is usually what happens. Bitcoin leads the way out of the rally. So Bitcoin leads its way up. Altcoins continue to lag. And then people looking at the altcoins saying, you fucking piece of shit, you haven't moved since March and now Bitcoin's rallying. They eventually capitulate and sell those alts to chase into Bitcoin. And at that point, the altcoins can actually start to move again. So it's a combination of price and time based. I don't know which one it's going to be, but overall, my reading of sentiment at the moment is I think we're close to a bottom. I would say 63, 62 on Bitcoin would be the lowest I would expect at this point. And that's based off the volume. Two different looks at volume profile of where Bitcoin could retest. 64 is a place where it can bottom, for sure. If you remember a few weeks back when we were talking about trading, it took so long for Bitcoin to break 64. That was the key daily shift that we had. And so we're just coming back to retest that now. That's important from a higher time frame perspective. So yeah, unless we see something significantly shift, I think sentiment wise and all the, the reading of the market I think we're close to the bottom.